Hello, everyone, and welcome to our March webinar. I hope that you are well. Today, we are going to be covering a topic which I think is completely relevant, particularly where we are in the year. I know a lot of you are scrabbling with ends of year, and we get to the top of that hill, don't we? And then we get to the end of the year, and then we have to start climbing up that hill again. So I think it's a really good opportunity to pause and reflect on how we motivate not just ourselves, but also our teams. Just before we start, a little bit about Boys Turner, if you are new to us, new to our webinar program. So my name is Emma O'Connor. I'm a legal director in the employment team, and I also head up our HR Training Academy. Boys Turner, we're based in the Thames Valley, but we look after clients across the UK, Europe and globally. And in the employment team, we offer a full range of services, including HR support, litigation support, business immigration, as well as training for HR teams and managers. So any employment issues, HR concerns or training or business immigration, then please do get in touch. Also, if you want to stay up to date with what we're doing, follow us on Twitter, follow us as well on through our podcasts and also on our YouTube channel, where we put all of our podcasts as well as our webinars as well. So lots of opportunities to get involved and also stay up to date with what's going on, because as we know, it's a very busy year. 2024 is going to be for HR. Also, if you want to, and you're not already linked in with me, then please do take a picture of the screen and it will take you through to my LinkedIn page and we can link in with each other, which would be amazing. And on my LinkedIn page, I share articles, comments, and also all of our invitations to webinars, training events, and also podcasts as well. So please do link in with me and let's stay connected. So to today, well, I am thrilled to be joined by Marcie Shaoul, who is owner of Rolling Stone Consulting. Marcie and I have been talking about doing a webinar for a long time, and I'm absolutely thrilled that we have finally been able to get a date in the diary. So my thanks as ever to Marcie. As you know, we like to bring you different speakers, different voices, different themes that you may or may not be thinking about, may or may not be relevant to you at the moment, but certainly they are issues that will be on your HR agenda moving forward. So Marcie, thank you so much for joining me today and speaking to our audience.
Welcome. Thanks so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. Boys Turner are a super firm, so I'm really happy to be part of this. It's really great, and the work that you do, Emma, is really valuable and needed. So good afternoon. I'm Marcie Shaoul, and I run Rolling Stone Coaching. We exist to enable companies and individuals to be the best version of themselves and increase the impact that they're having in and out of the workplace. And we achieve that through one-to-one work, group coaching, training, and masterclasses. I set up Rolling Stone Coaching in 2016 after working as head of communications in parts of the diplomatic service. And I had a great time doing that. I was seconded into Buckingham Palace for 12 months, which was super fascinating. And I got to work with a lot of people who have done a lot of incredible things. And Emma, I suppose I also saw firsthand what happens when teams and businesses and companies lose their motivation and the impact that that can have across the board. And that stayed with me as I, changed and became a coach and started to observe some patterns around how people were losing their motivation. So it's brilliant to be here today with you to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think, it's, as I said, a lot of businesses are probably coming up to their year end. It's that time where we need to reflect, obviously, on what we've done over the past year. We feel again, targets and everything are being reset. And also, I think it's been a time of great change within businesses. I think there has been certainly, the clients that I work with and the managers in particular that I train talk a lot about uncertainty. I think there has been a lot of head down. I think we are still very much head down. We're very much doing. We are firefighting.
Yeah.
I think, there is that need to kind of lift our head, to look forward, to, you know, gaze and think about where we want to be, you know, what our purpose is, and how we can, you know, kind of reach the goals that we set ourselves. And I think why this is particularly timely for us to be talking about this now is that motivation is a key part of that, not just how we motivate ourselves, but also how we motivate others within our team, but also within our organisation. So, Marcie, let's kick off, shall we? What is motivation?
Great question. So motivation, what is it? Why is it important? Look, whether it's motivating an individual or motivating a team, right? The one thing that we know is that when we're motivated, we become more driven, right? We have more desire to act, we have more energy, and it's really, motivation is really like a fundamental underlying component of a healthy company. And a healthy functioning company. I'm just noticing my slide looks a bit funny there, doesn't it? One of the biggest misunderstandings that people have about the best way to motivate people in business is that it's through reward, right? Through pay rises, through bonuses. And whilst these are great and definitely needed, it's absolutely not the best way to increase motivation. The quickest and the most effective way that people feel motivated and have an increased sense of loyalty is through increasing their sense of belonging and their sense of significance. Because if we feel part of something and if we feel that we're significant, then we're much more motivated to show up fully to our work. It's also a misconception that our managers have all the answers to make that motivation happen, and the motivation needs to come from the top down. I'd challenge that. I'd say we actually all have a responsibility to find our own path and our own journey and our own place in a company, so we can feel that we belong and that we are significant. And the main thing that kind of fuels that is if we can see clearly, I suppose, how our role aligns to the bigger vision of firstly our team, secondly the department, and thirdly the wider company. And good motivation with your staff and in yourself means a better bottom line effectively.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think, you're absolutely right. I think different people are motivated by different things, aren't they? Some people are purely motivated by, hard-earned cash, and what does that look like? And I think, that there is that. I think you're absolutely right as well, that other people are motivated by that sense of, why am I doing this? This purpose-driven, motivating by purpose. And why are we here? What are our goals as an organization? And also, what are our goals as a team? And how are we all going to work together to do that? And you're right, our managers are, I call them our, chief cheerleading officers. They really should be out there with the pom-poms, come on, we can do this. But actually, again, you're right, it does have to come from yourself, isn't it? We all have to feel motivated, to get out of bed, etc. in the morning. So yeah, I think it is multifaceted.
And I think one thing you said earlier about, how we're all kind of head down and like just got to look, that this is reduced our feeling of being connected with other people, and being connected with other people, feeling like we're part of a team, feeling like we're part of something is a great driver as well. And the kind of working from home, the hybrid working definitely had a massive impact on that.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to explore that later, Marcie, as part of, when you're talking about motivation around? Because I absolutely agree with you. I think the whole, purpose is linked to feeling that sense of community, and maybe people aren't, with each other, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and what does that do to our sense of belonging and motivation? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, we can talk about it now because we can weave it into the idea of that belonging and significance. Because as a concept, belonging and significance sounds a little bit abstract, a little bit floaty, but actually if we can make it into something more concrete for our listeners today, and that's something that in our work, what we do is, you have to make things practical and applicable in companies. Otherwise, it's just a waste of money. And I think that if you're part of a company, remembering that you're part of a system that's achieving a business goal is really important. And in order for employees to feel as though they belong, the vision and the mission of the company needs to be explicitly aligned with their work. So, for example, if your company has a vision to be, I don't know, the best internet service provider in the northeast of England, right? Let's be specific. Then every single one of your staff needs to feel as though they are directly contributing towards that vision, and that the work that they do is directly impacting the success. And if they don't feel that, they start to do what we call separating off. And that's how you end up with employees who are a bit lackluster, or a bit, disinterested, or kind of show up and aren't performing properly. It's only when they feel significant and that they can see the impact that they're having, that they feel fully motivated, that we feel fully motivated. And when I introduce this concept into companies, often the first question I get asked is, well, how can we do that with support staff? How can we show them that they're having an impact on our bottom line if all they're doing is driving the vans or sorting out the post? And that's when I get my flip chart out, because
Well, actually, yes.
well, yeah, or online now, because actually you should be able to draw a line from the top to the bottom and from the bottom to the top that demonstrates a pathway that each role has that affects the business. And if you can't draw that line, and if you can't link them in, then actually there's no use for that role in your company system, which is quite brutal, but it's true. So if you're looking for practical steps that you can do to enable your employees to increase that belonging and significance and their motivation, there are lots of places that we can go to today. But just to bear in mind to start with that that each company and each workplace is a system of roles, and each role needs to fit within the vision and the mission of the company.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Marcie, how are we going to do this? So how are we going to motivate?
Well, we are going to, as the slide says, we're going to look at communication first, because, there's that we could go anywhere. We could look at how to run team meetings, encouraging internal career planning to increase retention, enabling personal branding, or goal setting for employees. I mean, we can't do everything today. So we're going to go to the biggest piece and cover off a little piece of it, right? So, and that's communication. And I'm going to start actually by asking you a question, Emma. So how long do you think we can speak? And actually, if your participants, pop it in the chat, okay? How long do you think you can speak before you're interrupted?
So if you want to pop that in, I can see the Q&A on my
I can't see the chat,
screen.
actually.
You can see the chat?
No, I can't. So I'm going to ask you then, Emma. If there's no chat, then I'm gonna ask you, unless they can use the Q&A to do that.
Yeah, you can pop it in the Q&A, please. That is open and I can read that. So pop it in the Q&A. How long is it when you're speaking in a meeting situation before you are interrupted?
So Richard says 60 seconds.
Yeah.
2 to 3 minutes, depends how senior you are.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Like that, Katie.
4
Thank
minutes.
you very much.
Oh, wow, 3 minutes. Okay, amazing. Right, so 20 seconds is the answer.
Wow.
Right. So the average is we're only usually able to speak. I mean, it's nuts when you think about it, but we're only usually able, in conversation with friends and family and colleagues, to speak for around 20 seconds before we're interrupted. And actually, Nancy Klein, she's an amazing author and coach, did a whole bunch of research on this, right? So it is based in something and not just hearsay. And we only usually let others speak for 20 seconds before we interrupt them. So just think about that for a moment. Not very long, is it?
Why do people interrupt? And I've just interrupted you.
Thank you for doing that. That's exactly what I wanted. Well, okay, so we very rarely let people get to the end of what they're saying before we interject with a thought. It doesn't have to be a rude interruption, a thought or a reference to our own experience. It can be a disagreement. It can be an agreement. We just don't really let people finish, because we probably are trying to align with them, show our relevance with them, show our relevance and knowledge in the conversation that we're having. And actually interrupting disrupts a conversation. It doesn't help a conversation. And if somebody is expecting to be interrupted, which we all are, by the way, kind of subconsciously, then we rush what we're saying, okay? And we might say it a little bit more forcefully than we would normally. if someone knows that you won't interrupt them, then just consider the impact that that might have on how they speak and what they say. So actually for participants, if you can go back to the Q&A boxes and just think about one or two things that you feel when you're interrupted, that would be really good to see and hear. I mean, I get frustrated when I get interrupted, you know, it's like, let me just finish, for goodness sake. How about you, Emma?
Yeah, I think frustrated. I think I suppose we try and plan, don't we, what we want to say, because we know time is precious. And I think at the moment, particularly if people are kind of only in the office a couple of days a week or whatever it might be, so you only have a concentrated period of time to be able to have a meeting, see people, you've got to get it out.
Exactly.
And when you are interrupted, it's I've got it planned, I know what I'm going to say, just let me finish. So we've got, Claire's really good point there, unimportant. Frustrated, lose a train of thought. Yeah, absolutely, Laura. Totally agree with that. Yeah,
so,
get flustered. Yeah, agreed.
And then maybe in the chat again, what everybody who's listening, you know, what do you think would happen if you weren't interrupted by people? How would that make you feel? Let's see what comes up there. How would you feel, Emma, if you knew you weren't going to be interrupted?
Well, maybe a little bit pressured because it's like people are listening to you intently, and you've got all this time in the world to fill.
Yeah. So respected, empowered, valued, surprised. Christine's surprised that their list, she's confused if they're not listening to her. Heard and valued. These are all kind of really positive things. And then just finally, just to finish this off, this kind of little demo, what might happen if you didn't interrupt someone? How would that make them feel? I'm going to give you kind of something that pulls all this together just in a moment. How do you think others would feel if you didn't interrupt them? Not sure which one's for which now. Oh, there we go. So Laura, that's interesting that you may not feel that they may not feel that you're interested. However, I'm not saying don't respond to them. I'm just saying don't interrupt them. So the idea is when they've completely finished speaking that we respond to them. And so they will feel really heard after that and valued, Richard. Yes, that you value their opinion, listened to, heard. Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for kind of playing in that place. If your company culture is very fast paced and fast moving, then it's really likely that the normal thing to do is to be interrupting colleagues, interrupting direct reports all the time. Probably you interrupt your managers less, whoever said that in the chat. Interrupting gives the illusion of saving time, right? It gives the illusion of saving time. But what it actually does is take more time. Because when you fully listen to people without interrupting them, you give them a chance to say what they need to say. And if you like, they get to clear their top layer before getting to the new thinking. And it's the new thinking that is the focused, time-saving, money-making gold dust that you're looking for as a manager or a CEO. And if you're running meetings and people are constantly vying for top position to be heard, then it's really, really difficult for the thinking to move forward. People lose motivation. So companies who run meetings in the ways that we teach, for example, they can save like 50, 60% on time, but they also have brilliantly motivated staff because their staff feel heard and their staff feel listened to. And there's room for new thinking. There's significance and belonging in bucket loads. And then here's the interesting thing, retention increases and people who don't fit leave, which is okay because they're going to find somewhere else that they fit better and things become more streamlined. So making sure you listen is kind of essential for motivation. That makes sense so far.
No, absolutely. And I think, so we just did that, didn't we? I think you're right. It's that sort of, two ears, one mouth, isn't it? That's that's kind of the important thing to think about. And you're right. I just looking back at the questions there, we had a question about how do remote meetings. So, when you've got either some people in the office, some people remotely, how does this kind of impact that, we want to make sure everybody is heard, we want
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody is engaged in the meeting, but it's kind of, everyone's not sure because we can't get the social cues. Have you finished, haven't you finished, etc.
It's really hard to do that, but there's a really useful method that we teach. It usually takes around an afternoon to teach, but the summary of it is that if you're running a hybrid meeting, or even if you're doing just an online meeting, somebody chairs it, and then you give everybody the same amount of time to speak, and the kind of agreement is you don't interrupt, and you as the chair take them, you call on people to speak to make sure everybody has a voice. And what that does, it reduces the louder voices and increases the quieter voices, because and then you get the thinking that you don't normally get. And you can do this in a room with people, you can do it hybrid, you can do it online, and it's a really nice way of running efficient meetings. And what you find is that even though everybody might be responding to the same point, by listening to the person before them and the others that have gone before, the new thinking has already started to happen, because what they may have said has already been said, so it doesn't need saying again. So they may then say, oh, I agree with everything that Josephine and Samuel said before, but it's made me now think of X, Y, Z, and that's where that gold dust is if you're kind of running a company.
Yeah.
I think I might give you a takeaway now, given that the slide is up there. A little active listening one. What do you think?
I think so.
Okay, so I'm sure that many people on the call today have heard of something called active listening. That's another massive topic, and it fits nicely under communication, and it links in with what we've just been talking about not interrupting. But I think that it's such a used technique in coaching, but we get so used to it and we don't often teach it. But it's so important, because the underlying idea of it is to do that, listen without interrupting, but also listening without judgment, to de-escalate conflict. And what you'll notice, if you're not interrupting people, remembering that 20 seconds that we just looked at earlier, that conflict will reduce in your firm. So if you are a firm that has quite a lot of conflict, or you have conflict between managers, teaching them to speak to each other using active listening, which might feel a bit strange to them to start with, but will really help de-escalate conflict and resolve, which can be quite important. But it also increases motivation, okay? Because when someone feels listened to and heard, they get a dopamine hit. And you know that dopamine is like a neurotransmitter made in your brain, and it plays a role as a reward center, and in many of our bodily functions, actually, including memory, movement, motivation, attention, and all of that. And so if we're listening well and people are feeling heard, you've got a lot of motivation going on. And we use 5 steps in active listening that are quite simple to use during conversation, and they will increase motivation in others. And the reason I want to pass these 5 steps on to you today are because it's not just about you motivating others, but it's also for yourself, okay? Because I'm all about career progression and moving forward, whether you're staying at your current company or not. And I can guarantee you that by using these 5 steps, the career progression and changing jobs becomes a smoother experience, because being able to climb a career ladder, or be a good manager and be a good leader, it's so fundamental that we can communicate well, and listening is much more important than talking. Because when people talk about communication and motivation, right, you hear motivational talks and motivational speakers, and let's get up there and wave our pom-poms, and it's all outward. It's all about what you say, how you say it, and who you say it to. But actually, I was a communication specialist for many, many years, and whilst I can tell you that those things are really, really important and they're true, real change and real transformation comes from the listening side of communication. So if you can listen well, and when your interactions with your colleagues and even at home with your partners, you can just notice how much easier conversations come, and how much more motivated those around you become. And actually, this is kind of little like a bonus. You become more influential as a leader, because if you're the person that listens well in the company, people will come to you. You will become the person that's not replaceable because you become like a linchpin, right? The glue. So it's quite a deep topic. So we're doing it quite quickly today. So 5 steps. Number 1, keep an open mind during conversations. Please don't jump to conclusions straight away. See what unfolds. The conversation might go in a direction you weren't expecting. Secondly, listen to the words that the speaker is saying and that they're using, but also focus on how they're speaking, because this will give you a better idea of their frame of mind and therefore how to respond. Number 3 is notice what you're feeling, because feelings are infectious. So if you're listening calmly, then there's a really good chance that the conversation will remain calm. Equally, if you're irritable and you're talking really quickly, then the speaker is much more likely to become kind of frustrated and irritable too. Don't make assumptions. Number 4, if you make assumptions, based on what you think about people or on previous conversations, you can't know what someone's going to say. We've all had that conversation where, someone's kind of jumped in and finished our sentence off for us and they've been wrong. And we know that that's a bit irritating. And then number 5, we've learned already, don't interrupt. Wait until they're completely finished speaking. Don't jump in, don't speak over them, give them space to say what they need to say and then respond. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And if I could just echo, I mean, those tips are what I would say you should be doing in not just a kind of a business meeting, but also when you're doing other conversations, other kind of challenging conversations that maybe you're having with employees, particularly around maybe it's an investigation meeting of sorts, or talking about performance, or going through a conduct issue. So these are all that, I mean, that's just kind of top tips for any kind of interaction with employees that you're having in other kind of employee relations situations. So yeah, no, really, really helpful there. And as I said, I'd echo that as well.
And so Graham said in the chat, actually, use and instead of but, and they kind of, and that absolutely, there are loads of things around language that this is a massive topic, right? We go into days and train on this, but language is so important. Graham's completely right. Saying and, never saying you, always owning something yourself. Don't be accusatory. Don't kind of make sweeping statements. All of this stuff is really good for motivation too.
Absolutely. So communication, active listening,
bonus tool,
which is obviously our 5 top tips. Limiting beliefs. What do you mean by that, Marcie?
So limiting beliefs are things like I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not clever enough. And those beliefs impact our work, they impact our motivation, they impact our team's motivation as well, because they're those horrible voices that unfortunately we do all have. And as managers, then, we have to be able to kind of spot that, what's happening with that person. Why are they kind of, feeling not very confident or not very motivated? And it could be that they're experiencing limiting beliefs. And the thing that I want to kind of give you as a takeaway now is this idea of incisive questions. And they're a solution really to use when we're stuck, so when we're stuck, or when someone's self-belief is faltering, or you need to increase morale or motivation. So I'm going to try and give you an example. Imagine that a member of your team comes to you. Let's just name them Sarah. So Sarah tells you that she's got a problem with her colleague, Nadine. Nadine is always correcting Sarah's work. Sarah feels a bit stupid because of this. And she also feels like maybe she's not as clever as Nadine, but she doesn't want to confront Nadine because she thinks that Nadine will laugh at her and think that she's stupid. Okay. So Sarah's started to lose her confidence. She's feeling a bit flat. She's feeling a bit unmotivated, and she's feeling dispirited. So she's not performing well if she's feeling like that, right? Sarah is making an assumption about herself that she's not very bright. And neurologically, when we lose our confidence about something, our brain, lovely brains, they unhelpfully go into catastrophe mode, And we can make quite extreme assumptions that really aren't based in fact, but they're quite difficult to get rid of. And an incisive question is used because, and you can free your brain from that pattern that it finds itself in. And it does this by making, by kind of bypassing the neurological pattern that we're in. So it might be something that you might ask Sarah something like this. Sarah, if you knew you were intelligent, how would you talk to Nadine? So for Sarah, we've retold her brain that it has a solution as though she's clever, which she is, by the way. It's just that she's not thinking that she is. So we free her from her limiting assumption and we move her a bit more towards a solution. And it's a very simple technique, but it really does work. So you might say ones like this. If you knew that you're vital to the success of your company, how would you approach your work? Okay, so you're trying to kind of get people to think differently. If you've got a team and they're running out of good ideas or they're not feeling very motivating, you could ask them something like, well, what might we be assuming here that is limiting our thinking on this issue? Or you might go to kind of a bit more of an extreme, and if you're looking for a different solution, if the solution was too wild, what would it be? You're trying to encourage new thinking and getting people out of a rut.
Mm.
And that's what limiting beliefs and incisive questions are.
No, and I think that's useful. And I think particularly where you've got, and you do have blocks, don't you? You have mental blocks yourself, not feeling that you can do it, but also I think as a team as well, you can have those kind of blockers where you can't see. And I think that goes back to having that clear vision and purpose, doesn't it? If you all know what you're kind of aiming for and wanting to achieve, then, it's about thinking in different ways. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. Let me just close the chat down so I can see. So so really, if you've got any questions or want to pop anything in the Q&A, then now is your chance to do so. I guess really from, thinking about kind of, working with different teams that I've done, hearing about what other organizations, the challenges and things that they find. Do you think that you can be demotivated yourself as a leader but still be able to motivate your team?
Yes, I think you probably see that quite a lot where people kind of put on a front and motivate their team, but it will only be up to a point, because eventually people will see that there's, if you've lost your passion for something, people will pick up on it, right? Whether it's consciously or subconsciously. It's really important to be able to be demonstrating through showing rather than telling. And I think what's really difficult is as a leader, it's quite lonely at the top. Having that, camaraderie that might bounce you back, or having somebody that you can bounce ideas off, becomes really, really important. And I think that's why so many leaders use coaches, because they're an external resource, they're neutral, and they can have honest conversations without perhaps feeling like they have a responsibility in that conversation. But I think that, if you don't use a coach, find somebody either in another organization that you can bounce ideas off, or somebody that you trust at a senior level in the team. It's not easy though.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think, we look to our managers, don't we, to know everything and answer all the the questions that we may have, and it's not always is the case. But I think you're right. I think you can be demotivated in yourself but still be motivating.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think it's very, very short-lived, being able to do that. And you're right, people will be able to kind of see through that, I think quite easily.
That's a road for burning out as well. If you're trying to kind of keep the ship afloat whilst you're not feeling like you're leading the ship, or you're not afloat, then there's probably something going on that's making you feel like that. So you have to start looking then at things like, well, actually, do I have enough resources? Am I resilient enough? Am I burning out? Those are the questions that which is why having a good support network around you is really important. I spoke at an event once, and it was brilliantly titled. It was, who is your own personal board of directors? Like, who do you need in your kind of back pocket to support you, to prop you up? Because we can't do it on our own. We're not designed to to kind of exist and lead on our own. Having a group of people who make us feel good and who make us motivated and productive is really important. And as HR professionals and managers, that's partly your function for people, kind of your colleagues and your direct reports. But as leaders, we've got to make sure that we have that at the top of the organization too.
Perfect. Just a question about kind of, going back to the piece about, communicating and listening. We've got a comment here about managers struggling with this when their minds are focused elsewhere. So again, it can come across as disinterested. When you've got so many things going on and we've got so many plates spinning, not just at work, at home, is there some sort of tips around being able to prioritize that you could give?
Yes, I think, well, it's difficult, isn't it, when we've got so much going on. There are lots of different ways that you can prioritize, and if you're asking about prioritizing across work and home, I mean, that's harder than just prioritizing at work. So if we just look at work, maybe for now, you have to kind of look at what's urgent and important. Okay, that's your first kind of quadrant. If you draw a box, top left, urgent and important, that should be the things that you do first. Those should be the things that you do first. And also delegating is extremely important. If you're in a position where you can delegate, for goodness sake, learn to delegate, because actually you can't do everything. And whether that's getting in somebody to help you maybe with stuff at home that's kind of more admin-y so you can concentrate at work, whether it's seeing if you can increase your team, not always possible though, right? Learning to say no is really important too. But if I take you back right to the beginning, when we were talking about the vision and the mission of a company, if your vision and mission for your role and your team is aligned directly to the top, there will be things that feel like they're kind of outside of that remit. Strike them off, right? Because if it's not completely aligned to the vision and the mission of the company, and it's making you fall over because you're top heavy now, you've got too much going on, then perhaps you need to rethink that.
And I think a good thing about meetings as well, isn't it? Why have I been invited to this meeting? If you don't know why, then be ruthless. So your diary is important. Really good question from Claire. Any tips for more introverted leaders to motivate outwards?
Yeah, great question, that. Firstly, Claire, have you read the book Quiet? Because that's a super book to go and read. I've got it not behind me, so I won't go scrabbling around for it now. But it's called Quiet. Of course, I can't remember who it's by now, but that's all about the space for introversion in today's very extroverted society, right? And how you manage people who are extroverts and how you interact with them. And I think that's really interesting because it depends where you are on the introverted scale. If you're on the borderline or just before, then it's easier for you to kind of step into that kind of acting of that extrovert in order to meet another extrovert, in order to meet an extrovert where they are. If you're extremely introverted, then I would say you get other people to do that bit for you or with you. That's also another good tip, right? If you are very introverted, but you're very good at what you do and you're managing a bunch of extroverts, that's going to be quite tricky. But the one thing you can do is set expectations for your team. So you sit them down, you tell them, right, this is the way I operate. I'm not going to be down your throats and in your face every 5 minutes. I'm quite quiet. This is what I expect. And this is how we will work well together. Right. Just being really clear, designing how you're going to work together, because that really helps people manage their own expectations. Because if you're an introvert and they're an extrovert and they're coming to you and they're wanting that kind of, high energy response and you're not giving it to them because you can't, because you're an introvert, then they are going to feel demotivated by that. So being really clear and explicit with them will help them understand why that's happening. And then they will go elsewhere to get that kind of feed of energy that they need.
Good. Yeah, good response there. And then just before we finish, the world is challenging. There are lots of things going on outside of work, which are impacting on individuals. And as I said, we do look to our managers to kind of solve all the problems of the world for us. But are there any tips that you can give, for supporting our people more generally, and motivating them, maybe at work, such that, the issues outside are not so huge?
Is that in relation to Katie's question that she's?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I think that, if you listen well to people, that's a really supportive role to play without overstepping the mark. You're not necessarily qualified, or it's not appropriate to give advice on, relationships and home life when you're their manager, but you can listen well, and you can, if you have budgets, bring in, support, bring in coaches, bring in therapists, bring in whatever it is that you need in the company, because companies have a responsibility for well-being, right? And there are just so many support networks out there. And actually, if you're looking directly for ones, whether it's us or not, I can signpost you to the right people, because I think it's really, really important to have mental health support. And I feel like what you said before, Emma, about sometimes we're just drowning in like what's going on at home, and I am at the moment. My son's got pneumonia, a broken foot. He's doing his GCSEs, and I'm trying to work, right? Just like nuts. And so how do we kind of show up and stay calm? And it is about compartmentalizing sometimes, and it is about making sure we take time for ourselves as well, and getting support that we need. I'd really encourage you all to do that, and it's not a shameful thing to do. Actually, it's quite a powerful thing to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, taking time for yourself, often, we don't do that because we're too busy doing the other things. So yeah, I think that's a really nice point to end on, actually. Take time for yourself, motivate yourself, because if you're not, if your pint pot is overflowing, you're not going to be able to be the best leader, the best manager, and get the best out of your people. So that's a really important takeaway. Marcie, where can people find out more? What can they do to find out more about what you're doing, what training is available, etc.?
Definitely on my website, but email me, marcie@rollingstonecoaching.com. My website has some videos on it, it's got some resources on it, but just email and find out about some of the trainings and the workshops that we run. We run all sorts of things, from communications masterclasses, personal branding, this motivation one, but obviously longer, how to align your teams when team systems aren't working. How do you do that? I mean, there's just the whole lot. And we also provide it one-to-one coaching in companies. There are 6 of us, and it's a really effective way of increasing impact and increasing your bottom line as well.
And what I'll do, so I'll contact everybody and give them the information. And what I'll do is, if people want to find out more and want to come and join a virtual training course, or we can do something in person, then just let me know, because as part of the training academy, we want to offer you training that's not just legal based, but obviously kind of leadership and skills as well. So please do let me know, and we're, Marcie and I are happy to do that together. So thank you so much. Hopefully that's given you some tips there to be able to feel motivated, motivate yourselves and motivate each other. I think some fantastic things there, particularly the point about, we only get to speak for 20 seconds. Gosh, that seems a luxury, doesn't it? Make those 20 seconds count. And again, I thought it was really interesting about, making sure, and again, ask yourself, do you feel that you belong? Do you feel that you're significant? And also, be challenging to your team as well. Do you think the team members feel that they belong within the team? Do they feel that they are significant and they are contributing at whatever level they are? So I really liked that. I thought that was a really interesting, 2 things to think about from the off. So thank you very much to Marcie. Brilliant, fantastic there, some great insights. Drop me an email if we can help. If you want to find out more about Marcie and Rolling Stone as well. So thank you very much for joining me. You will be sent the recording again, so you can listen and share with your teams. It'll obviously be up on social media and our YouTube channel. I look forward to seeing you again for our April webinar. So look out for invites that are coming out on that. But that leaves me to say thank you very much. Thank you to Marcie, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you again.